This channel does not give daily reports on the situation in Ukraine. We focus on specific issues and leave the reports up to those channels that are simply superb at it. Ukraine Matters is a great example. However, there are some out there that are clearly more focused on views and creating nonsense to such a degree that I felt it important to come out and look at the current situation in Bakhmut and hopefully rebuff some of the more explosive claims out there. Just a small bit of history: if you don't know this already, you have not been listening. Russia started bombarding the town in May 2022, the infantry assault began in August, and since then this little town been a meat grinder for all those present, and still the Russians have failed to capture what has become a metaphor for resistance and national pride. The situation only changed on the 16th of January when Russian forces captured the town of Soledar. This capture gave them the opportunity to advance on Bakhmut from the north, and to take control of the T-0513 Siversk-Bakhmut highway, which cut that supply line to the town. They have subsequently pushed out further west, taking the town of Blahodotny, and now there is a precarious hook hanging over the north of Bakhmut. There has also been a steady progress from the south of the town too. They took Klishchivka and pushed out further northwest. This ever-forming C-shape started to look it may fully encircle Bakhmut, and in all fairness they have rendered 3 of the 5 supply lines into the town ineffective, and it's this combined situation that is driving all the armchair generals mental and making the little Putin buddies drool in anticipation. But before I hit Bakhmut again, I want to deal with a few issues that need clarification. Let's cut the waffle and talk straight. The Russians have started their much-anticipated offensive. It was always going to happen, and I truly believe it was brought forward to negate the expected Western machinery reinforcements and to effectively get ahead of the Ukrainian offensive. The main thrust is focused on the entire Svatov-Kremenna line. In this area they have committed significant elements of at least 3 major Russian divisions. Despite this significant pressure, the Ukrainians are holding on well and have even managed to launch small unit-based counter-attacks. The size of the units involved mean they are clearly meant as delaying actions and nothing more. There have been some questions as to why the units are so small, and the answer is straightforward. Ukraine is holding back units for the counter-offensive. Commit them too soon and you risk the effectiveness of the attack or any reserves for follow-on actions. The Russian 2nd Motorized Rifle Division, which deployed to Luhansk Oblast, has not yet been committed to the offensive, as it's most likely being held in reserve for the future. We will need to keep our eyes on that little porcupine, as it will no doubt have a role to play in due course. Going south, we have all seen the results of the attempted attacks on Vuhledar. I won't bore you with the details, but the Russian efforts have been so poor and the slaughter so unprecedented that even the Russian mill bloggers are calling for the execution of the general in charge, Rustam Muradov. Some armchair generals will have you believe that everything is going well for the Russians. It isn't, and they are suffering on a grand scale. Despite Vuhledar, they have made some slow progress. I would have expected them to do so. But to set the groundwork for their turn, the Ukrainians must bleed this offensive, reduce the numbers, and open the road for the tanks when the time comes. That brings me back to Bakhmut. Some rather annoying YouTubers have literally been begging President Zelensky to withdraw from the town due to the threatening situation. They say he is wasting his men amongst a battery of other insults. Let's not lie about it, things are bad in Bakhmut. As mentioned, the supply lines are reduced, there are 3 sides pressing down on the defenders, and if they cannot keep the exit route open, they will be trapped. But this is war, and right now, bleeding the enemy must take priority, and Bakhmut has bled the enemy significantly. If I was in charge, Bakhmut would be held until the very last minute. I would reinforce the flanks of the exit route and keep the door open come what may. One armchair general on YouTube, with 0 military experience, said that Bakhmut was chock full of territorial army units, and that clearly this was sign that these recently mobilized soldiers had been sent there to die, with the better units having been withdrawn in order to preserve them. Like with most of these guys, I call bullshit. Having reviewed the Ukrainian units currently in the town, I find some of the finest units available. You have the Georgian Legion, Sheikh Mansour, various Chechen units, the Kastas Kalinovsky Belarusian unit, and in the west of the town you have the 93rd Mechanized Brigade. Just a reminder, it was the 93rd Mechanized that destroyed the Russian 4th Guards Division. Sure, there are some territorial units, but this is war and mobilization is to be expected. What is the point of mobilizing if you cannot use the manpower it provides? Trust me, there is never a good time to throw an accountant into a war zone, but sometimes life just sucks, and you will undoubtedly do better in defensive positions than advancing in the open against an entrenched enemy. Having extensively researched all the named units, I can tell you that they are more than capable and show that this town is valued by the Ukrainian MOD. What's more, what sort of message would sacrificing these international units give to the world? Come and fight for us, we will hang you out to dry when the time comes? Not exactly a clarion call for support. But apart from that, units are being rotated, which tells me that there is a plan and that there are units available for the task of replenishing and refitting. Also, if you are trying to give the impression of being unbiased in a YouTube report, don't refer to a unit of ex-prisoner mercenaries by their nickname, the Orchestra. This just smacks of fanboy and desperation. I didn't want to bring them into this, but Wagner has been largely attacking with complete cannon fodder in the form of ex-prisoners and other undesirables. I would put my money on a mobilized Ukrainian any day, and I do not for a second believe that Zelensky considers any of his men cannon fodder. Treating your men this way is a quick way to lose the war at home and to result in a complete collapse of the defensive line, and obviously this hasn't happened. Then this YouTubing genius shows a video of a few Ukrainian soldiers getting berated by another Ukrainian soldier that is dressed in a different uniform. Our YouTuber recounts how these soldiers fled their position as things were extremely difficult and that they had taken casualties. He claims that the one doing the shouting is an NKVD officer. Just so you are aware, the NKVD was Soviet and disbanded in 1946. He also says that the soldiers are mobilized because they have green tape on their arms, so does the supposed NKVD officer. Clearly, details are not important here. But here are some details that are real. 1. Things are difficult. The territorial units will find it horrific, but war sucks and people die. 2. In any army, retreating is not an option unless authorized. There is a fine line between cowardice and a tactical retreat. People get shot for doing that. 3. Those soldiers appear well equipped, contrary to a lot of reports about the mobilized troops and how they are sent into battle. I would break these men up and send them to other units. Clearly their morale is poor, but their jobs remain unchanged. On the note of breaking up units, this happens, especially when you have crowding in defensive positions. The Ukrainians found out the hard way in Soledar when they rushed too many troops and too many command structures into a small space. You get a lack of command and control cohesion. Things are missed and the defense breaks down. If you are saving men for an offensive, take those units not currently operating and spread them out, especially if they are seasoned troops and you have some territorial units needing some stiffening. Now of course the Ukrainians can withdraw and head to the highlands west of the town, where the preparation of defenses will make things difficult for the Russians. You can see from the topographic map what I am talking about. Of course, this will probably happen in due course, but it needs to happen after Bakhmut has completed its task, and I foresee the defenders filtering through fresh units to rest and recover further behind the lines. To think this YouTuber compared Bakhmut to Dien Bien Phu. It has zero similarities and it's a massive stretch to get to that conclusion, but hey, if it brings in views, why the hell not? But I have to say, by that time it felt like he was simply trying to lengthen his video. In conclusion, we are reaching the high point of this war and it all depends on how long Ukraine can hold the line. With the Western tanks coming and the training underway, it's all about time and getting the Ukrainian counter-offensive ready to be released on what will hopefully be a spent force. What's more, Bakhmut remains the key for as long as the Russians want to keep bashing up against it.